and welcome back to the JustBeCos podcast, a podcast about all things cosplay and life.
This Cosplay and Life podcast features me, Mangle Phantom, as well as...
Marmalade, hiya.
As you know, we're the representatives for Australia for the World Cosplay Summit happening in a couple of months' time. We're getting pumped. Hope you're getting pumped with whatever stage you're up to of your cosplay life. And welcome back to another episode where we talk about a lot of stuff. We go on tangents. We take you away to wondrous places we never thought we'd be talking about. But here we are. Here we are. Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, wherever you're listening in, please feel free to leave us a comment, leave us a rating of whatever you feel like it's worth giving us. And other people can listen to us too.
Yeah, absolutely.
We enjoy making this.
We do.
We hope you guys enjoy listening to it. And if you do, best way to show us that is just leave us a rating, because we'll keep doing it if you keep liking it. But if you stop, then we'll still keep doing it because we like it.
I was
this
going
is
to
fun.
say,
Yeah, we're not going to stop
Jeremy.
just because someone doesn't like us.
That goes against the ethos of what we preach here.
What do we preach here? First and
Anyone
foremost.
can cosplay.
You're not wrong. Anyone can cosplay. And
I was thinking about Ratatouille when I said
what,
that.
anyone can cook?
Yeah, obviously.
How did you connect JustBeCos podcast and Ratatouille?
I watched it the other day. I don't know. It's
Great
in my head.
movie.
Great mental health movie when you want to chuck something lighthearted on.
I never thought about that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably a go-to, and it's a good introduction into our topic for today. As you've seen by our super serious thumbnail.
So serious.
So serious. We had trouble actually thinking up a
Not
thumbnail because
laughing.
it's like, look, we can't... It's not a light topic.
No.
It's not something that I think you can easily kind of introduce in a humorous way because it's not something to be laughed at. As you know, we're talking about mental health today. Mental health and cosplay. Now, little disclaimer from the start, neither of us are mental health experts. Neither of us are people who have done any kind of training in that kind of field. But what we do want today is share some of our experiences and highlight the importance of being able to discuss something like this. Because I do feel, personally, cosplay and the community that kind of surrounds it is somewhat of a safe space. It's somewhat of an escape from maybe things that have been going on in people's lives. And cosplay, I know for me, especially as well as I think a lot of other people, it's been definitely something that's been a bit of a shining light, I suppose, in times that weren't so bright. But at the same time, I think it's good to have a discussion about, what cosplay can do for us, what it can't do for us, what it's good for, how it can be detrimental, and also same thing about how the community can be good, and it can be bad, and everything in between as well. So, how has cosplay helped you?
Mentally. Oh, God.
Let's start with how it has kind of affected us mentally, to start with.
Helped.
And why we're talking about this in the first place, I suppose, because, we are preparing for probably, arguably the biggest competition I think either of us are going to go through in our cosplay careers. If it gets topped, it gets topped at some stage, but for me, it's definitely going to be probably the biggest experience.
Yeah.
And along with that comes stress.
A lot of stress.
And along with that comes, I suppose a sense of urgency, a sense of, am I going to be good enough? Am I going to do well? Am I going to let someone down? Am I going to let myself down? How am I going to feel about it? What am I going to think? All these different things, and obviously can impact our thoughts and our health in many different ways. But, back to my original question, how's cosplay kind of helped or been something that's affected your mental health in different ways?
Yeah, that's an interesting kind of question for me personally. I don't think I was fully aware of mental health and what it meant, and all the kinds of feelings, negative, especially like negative mental health. Like I started cosplaying before I kind of discovered that world. So to me, it was never really attached or in my motivations or like kind of rationale. It was more of probably subconscious than I realized, whatever reasons or motivations I had for doing cosplay in terms of it helping. But I think started out wanting to find friends in the community, wanting to find something to be good at. I really wanted to pursue craftsmanship and become good at something, something that I could feel proud of myself for. But I never really was conscious, I think, or self-aware of the kind of mental health aspects around cosplay until much later. I would say during like 2017 to even during COVID, a lot kind of changed and shifted, along with like the way in which I engaged with cosplay changed majorly. It went from being a hobby, it went from being something that I did in high school with my friends to then entering competitions, and then on a professional level, I was doing it for commissions and as a business. So it's a lot riding on it, and still is now.
Yeah.
It's a lot of pressure on me in the way that I cosplay. It became something that I couldn't just do lightheartedly, which is a little bit scary, that there's of course opportunity in that, but also like a lot of pressure, and takes away a lot of the enjoyment. I think a lot of people have kind of preached for a while to do your passion as your career, but now that's turning around as don't do your passion as your career, because you will end up hating it.
I think it's definitely not one of those one piece of advice fits all kind of
Absolutely.
situations, because it's definitely everyone's living a different life in different situations in which we don't know what anyone's going through. So it's kind of difficult to say for everyone without fail you should 100% chase your passion as a career first and foremost before anything else in your life, because I think that piece of wisdom is very applicable for a lot of people, but it's not so applicable for a lot of people at the same time as well. I think for myself as well, it's very similar. You get into it because, like, wow, dressing up as my favourite cartoon characters, this is pretty fun.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And then later, it became part of my identity, if anything. It's like, wow, Jeremy's like that guy who does cosplay. He's the guy who makes things. But outside of that, I've had my midlife crises, absolutely. Especially when I felt like giving up cosplay, or when I felt like the community wasn't on my side, I suppose, in certain times. It makes me kind of figure out, it's like, gosh, what am I? Who am I? What is this to me anymore? And as you get older as well, and you make fewer costumes because it's fun, and it becomes more of a time sink and a money sink, and you've got a whole bunch of different factors in your life. It obviously you start to think differently. But at the end of the day, you kind of think, all right, cool. It's been more fun and more beneficial for me than it has been detrimental, and that's why I still continue to do it, because if it was the other way around, I probably would have stopped a long time ago as well.
Yeah, because I think it does have the capacity to become detrimental to your health. Absolutely. If you're not careful, and if you don't take the steps to build your own identity and your mindset up enough to protect yourself, I think that cosplay can be extremely detrimental to your mental health.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's for me, I think, and hopefully everybody is kind of in a similar boat too, in which we all grow up, in which we're growing and we're learning more about ourselves as we go out into the world, big wide worlds. And I think cosplay is one of those things which you start off, I think everyone is, it's like, hey, let's play dress ups with my friends and we can all match and it's fun. But obviously as you grow older and you face the world, you'll get opinions from people, you'll get judgment from people, you'll get unnecessary hate comments from people, just based on doing what you like. And I think a lot of that can really impact the way that you perceive not only cosplay as a hobby, but the way you perceive yourself.
Absolutely, especially when I recently have been getting an influx of creeps, just incels, people on the internet who sexualize me without any kind of incentive, or I literally posted a photo of me reading a manga and someone was like, what's with the weird foot porn?
And I
It
remember
was
seeing
literally
that.
on the TV, he was referring to a girl painting someone else's nails, fingernails,
Oh, right.
and he misinterpreted that
I
as
didn't
foot
even
porn.
see that part of the TV. I'm just like, isn't that just like your
foot.
kneecap?
My foot was in the photo.
Oh, I didn't even see the foot. It's like,
Exactly.
a kneecap with a book. I'm like,
Yeah.
but
Ridiculous, though.
it's weird.
It's shit that happens all the time, and then it makes me question, am I revealing too much of myself? But I haven't, incited that at all.
Yeah. But like you said, you're just doing you, and then you think, oh, did I? It makes you question yourself. You're gaslighting yourself.
Doubt yourself, yeah, absolutely.
It is one of those things in which, whether we... overall, I will say cosplay has been fantastic for me, because it has taught me a lot of things, whether I was wanting to learn them or not.
Yeah.
It could be either through relationships or just more about myself, or learning about confidence, learning about
Conflict.
learning how to resolve these things or how to face them in an appropriate way. Obviously, none of us are perfect, but we will learn from these things. That we learn from conflict, I think is the biggest thing. How has it for you personally? Do you feel like it has been harmful in any particular way, which you feel like, I don't know, it made you second guess doing cosplay at all?
I would say yes. I got to a really bad point, I think, during COVID because I was at that point running my commission business and it got to the point where I wasn't really enjoying it as much anymore. And it became like a life or death sort of situation for me where it was like, I need to do this to be able to pay my bills and I
Far
just
out.
don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And the kind of scene at the time, it was like we didn't have any in-person events and it felt to me as if the community wasn't really as present anymore during COVID, and it became this uprising of these elite level cosplayers who were able to produce like the most incredible content with studios and like photography and like TikTok, and everything just blew up really like. It was then seen as like the golden opportunity to, I guess, push online content, and I felt like I wasn't able to
Keep up.
with that. And absolutely, my expectations for myself was like, I want to be able to do this full time, but I can't. I don't know how to figure this out, and it absolutely became like detrimental to my mental health to try and force myself to then do it. Every month. Yeah. Especially.
I think when it becomes a thing, and it's a very common thing, is it is glorified quite a bit, and I don't. It's not that I don't see why. I definitely see why because I think it's everybody's. It'd be a dream job for anybody, I think, to do what you love every day and get paid for it, and you don't have to work a job which you don't like. And when it does become a business thing, I think that's when I think a lot more stress probably gets involved in it more than before. Do you feel like you had those kind of stresses before you kind of started considering doing content creation or influence? How was the word influencerism? Is that the word that we made up?
I think so.
Yeah. Did you think it was kind of you probably had because I think stress of any kind would exist in cosplay as a hobby because you care about it, and I think that exists in any hobby really. If you care about something, and something is possibly at stake, whether it be a reputation or a competition or the outcome of a certain post you put online where your self-esteem might be attached to it,
Yeah.
there's going to be stress involved.
Yes.
Do you feel like those stresses have always been present in some way, shape, or form since the day you started? Or do you feel like it's kind of only started because you started doing content creation more passionately?
No, I would say that they've been there since the start because I can kind of tie that back to the same way that I behaved in high school when it came to like assignments and stuff. I think I applied the same kind of mentality to my cosplays as soon as that started.
Right.
It was kind of like, I really want to be good at this. I want to be known for being good at this. I want to be unique. I want to be different. And that put a lot of pressure on myself to be making really high quality things. But I think I never really questioned myself until a little bit down the track, and when things got a bit messier, when I had those conflicts with people, or I didn't have a huge amount of self-confidence to be able to handle it. It got messy.
It's really interesting because I didn't realize how much, let's say, the cosplay itself is centered around self-confidence of some kind. I mean, you might think about doing any other hobby you can even think of, playing video games. I would say Matchbox cards, just collecting Pokemon cards. I don't know, walking and taking pictures of ducks. Whatever hobby you can think of. I think when it is intrinsically a social thing, I didn't realize how much of a necessity it was to learn how to love yourself or be confident. Because, we all go in the same mindset, like, yay, I want to play dress-ups and wear a costume. But it's not until you kind of put on that costume for the first time and walk around a convention that you kind of realise, wow, this is where my self-esteem or my confidence level is at.
Tested, right?
Yeah, because you probably don't forget the first time you wore a costume on the convention floor, good or bad, whether you felt good in it or bad, and you felt good enough that you said, all right, I'm going to go wear this outside. But when you got to the convention, you're like, what do people think of me? Do I look good in their eyes? Am I good enough? Is this worthy of being here? And I based a lot of my confidence on how many pictures did people take of me that day at the time. Is that something as well for you?
I think I remember taking note of it, yes, back in the day. I used to be like, oh man, I didn't get any photos today. And it would be like a big deal. But that was kind of before the bigger trends, I think, started happening. And I think that was like more in the like casual days of, that I was counting. And then I stopped counting because I made myself so busy with other things. Yeah. So that wouldn't even be a possibility.
Wouldn't be a possibility. funnily enough, because my self-esteem, my confidence, like it's not that I hated myself, but I didn't have a necessarily high view of myself that would be like, yeah, I'm the dude who cosplays, I'm the dude who is good at it, or I'm the dude that just like I just liked wearing it, and that was it. And again, hope maybe I can make some friends. That'd be nice. But the first time I almost quit, I would have been 18. I wore a costume from a video game that was a little bit niche. No one knew it. Entire day, not one picture, because it was very niche.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, this sucks. I think I tied a lot of my self-worth based on who
Other
noticed
people's
me and other
attention.
people's attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because as a contrast, the very next day I wore an Evangelion plug suit. First time. That was a mistake. Don't do it. And we got a phenomenal number of pictures.
Yeah.
And obviously I felt good about it because people say, oh, wow, this is popular. People like what I'm doing. But again, I didn't realise till later, people were just more interested about what I'm doing rather than who I am as a person. And later in life, where I am now, people are, I'd like to say, I feel better when people know who I am as a person and appreciate that more than my skill as a person who makes costumes. But it's just funny how, I guess, confidence is tied to the opinions of other people, especially very early when you don't know yourself very well. And then, hopefully it's something that we all learn, bit by bit. You shouldn't need to think good or bad about yourself based on what other people think of you. It's just what you think about yourself.
It comes back to that whole like being enough and enoughness, and it's not a matter of good or bad or being enough. Like you are enough just as you are, kind of thing. But that does take years of actions and results to believe it in yourself, and proving to yourself that you can show up. But I think with mental health, like have you ever experienced depression?
Very good question. I'd probably say situational depression.
Yeah.
In which just stuff sucked at a particular point in time. And it was as a result of just things that happened, which some was in my control, some was not in my control. And obviously the some that was in my control, you start hating yourself because like, oh, I could have, should have been this or done this, and maybe it would have been bad. But at the end of the day, it didn't change the fact that what happened. And yeah, I think it was shitty. But in terms of long-term or ongoing, I guess I'm fortunate to say I don't believe I have it. Or is that something for yourself as well? Ongoing, or is it situational? Or
Since I've had ongoing mental health issues for a while, but since like 2019, my kind of journey with this is quite interesting because I can tie it to a lot too. In 2019, I took the pill, a contraceptive pill, which there is not enough education about what that can do to your brain because it completely
changed the chemistry
my
in your
entire
body.
brain.
Yeah.
Yes. I never understood what like it felt like to be depressed or have any kind of mental health symptoms before I went on this pill, and it completely ruined my body for, I would say, the next 5 years. Like I'm still recovering.
Right.
So I had my hormones tested, and they actually do mess up with your like your progesterone levels and
Are you
your
still
estrogen levels.
on that, or
No, I was on the pill for 3 months.
right?
And it did 5 years worth of damage.
Crazy.
It was insane.
Yeah, right.
So it makes you really, like, for me, it was an obvious sign that your physical health is completely linked to your mental health. And ever since then, I think I've taken a different approach to cosplay when it comes to what limits you can kind of put yourself under as a cosplayer, because it's not really as talked about in the cosplay community, the ramifications of doing a con crunch.
I agree.
Of missing out on essential sleep, of not eating well, of taking massive amounts of caffeine through energy drinks or even sugary snacks, not eating well through a convention weekend. Like, yes, you might be running on adrenaline, but I can guarantee you the effects of that weekend will then have ramifications over the next few weeks and long term. But your body really can't sustain that kind of activity for that long, and I guarantee you're not going to have like a great time at a con if you're not looking after yourself. But So I've been going to therapy for 2 years now, seeing a counselor. They did diagnose me with adjustment disorder
Okay.
during COVID in 2020, but that was specifically tied to environmental factors. So they
Right.
said that this isn't something that like your brain isn't like you're like, I don't have depression in my brain. I don't have a chemical imbalance. So they didn't give me medication, which I do believe medication is a good option.
Yeah.
But I do believe that like skills before pills. Like you should be able to have the skills to be able to kind of look after yourself. And if you have the opportunity, get blood work done, because I cannot guarantee like
Got stress.
because I went through years of therapy
Right.
to then figure out I think that there's still something wrong with my actual body
Right.
and my brain. And when I went and got the results, I was so iron deficient. So iron deficient.
Right.
Which I wish I knew like earlier. Because that's an easy thing to fix. I was vitamin D deficient. I was zinc deficient. I had thyroid issues.
Oh my
I had
goodness.
hormone issues.
Wow.
So all of this shit going on. Yeah. So that's a lot.
It is.
Of course, I'm not going to be okay up here if I don't have the right nutrients to kind of get by and think.
Think.
Yeah, my brain is running on survival mode, just like with
Yeah.
the minimum amount of nutrients. I felt like during COVID, again, this is quite environmental, but the like loneliness, of course, contributed. I lost a lot of friends. I went through a lot of traumatic kind of breakup style
Just one
events.
thing on top of the other.
Yep, I lost my job. I just moved out of home, and then COVID hit, and I lost my job. It was terrible.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, oh, cool. I've had 19 years of like no mental health issues to then have it all hit me like a fucking
Lit like a truck.
like a truck. But that's okay, because now I have a lot more empathy and understanding for those people who do suffer chronic mental health issues, and it does make me want to breach this conversation and spread a bit
Absolutely.
more awareness of things that you can take into your control to make sure that, hey, you don't actually have to feel like terrible every day.
Yeah.
That's not normal. And you shouldn't feel like that, and you should try and access, especially in Australia, I think we have quite a good level of support for, in my perspective, the way that I was
compared to
able
a lot
to
of other countries, well, I think it's
Yeah.
it's not terrible.
no,
it's definitely
it's
not
not terrible. There were some difficult steps that I had to take. Like I did have to go to a few doctors to get a mental health care plan at first, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, those first few trips to the GP were quite terrible. Like I
Yeah.
left crying because of the way that they were kind of treating me. Like people are doing their best for sure, but oh my god, some older generations have some terrible opinions of
Yeah.
us trying to exist in a digital era. Like there's very much people who are trying to pursue creative industries. I can't tell you the amount of times I've been told to have a backup plan. Like, and
It's really
again, maybe if I had more self-confidence in myself, that wouldn't affect me as much, but having it questioned over and over and over again, especially by my parents,
Yeah.
to have a backup plan, of course it's going to make me not believe in myself as a creative,
100%.
even though I've proven over and over again through results that I am capable of achieving it. Everyone is, if they had the fucking belief and like support network.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because your support network changes everything. It's monumental.
It absolutely does. And that's something that my therapist told me time and time again, is that no matter what you change in your like lifestyle, it's the people that will support you and bring you out of it. That's what matters the most. And I can tell you from cutting out some very toxic individuals from my life, it has made such a dramatic improvement. No matter how long you might have been friends with these people, if they need to be cut out of your life, you need to make that step, no matter how hard it is. It took me like a year to cut certain people out of my life, and I am so grateful for having done that and no longer having to deal with their own mental health problems that have been unsolved, that are not your responsibility to deal with.
So glad you brought that up, because toxic people, had to cut them out of our life.
Yes.
I really believe it's one of those things where I think a lot of these things stem from your support network, from even when you're a kid.
Yeah.
Again, not a professional, but just a lot of the things that you feel like your parents have said to you throughout the years. Obviously, they're doing the best they can. They care for you. They just want the best for you. But obviously, with older mindsets, they're not completely aware of what is possible in the digital age and what can and can't be. Because I was told from the very start, go to university. That's the way to success.
Yeah.
And go so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Maybe, in the 80s, 90s, that was a very good way to go about getting a job, getting a career, and going from there. But
Yeah.
in the current age, it's probably less important.
Yes.
Unless, of course, you're in a field that needs like medicine,
Well,
engineering. It's different.
Yeah, I agree.
But in
Especially in places like the US where a degree will cost you like $300,000 and you start your life then at 25 with $300,000 debt.
it's
Like,
crazy.
what is that?
But the support network of the people around you, I think, is monumental, because
Yes.
I don't think any of us would, all of us, I think, would have less self-doubt if from the very start of our life, every single day, we were told by every person around us, parents, friends, family members, random people on the street, say, you want to do content creation? Go for it. I believe in you. No matter what happens, I've got your back. I'm here for you all the way. If every single person around you said that,
Yeah.
of course we'd be like, yeah, I'm going to go for it. I want no fear. But if everyone around you is telling you the opposite, we're just like, oh, I don't know about that. Maybe you should have a backup plan. That's not so certain. Of course you're going to start doubting yourself.
Yeah.
So I 100% agree on the thing that you were kind of going through, in which it says the people who you surround yourself with is going to be the biggest factor.
Yeah.
And when you kind of take a real look at I say this to everybody I meet too, is like, you take a look at the 5 closest people to you in your life, whether that be your partner, your parents, your best friends, whatever they might be. What kind of people are they, and how do they support you, or what does that support look like?
Yeah.
Because they might say, yeah, I love you so much, but yeah, your career plan, not so sure, man. Or, you've got it could be your romantic partner who's like, hey, I want to do content creation. They're like, yeah, I don't know, hey, I don't know. I don't think you're very good at it. I don't think it's a good path. If you're told those things by the people closest to you, of course you're going to start believing it.
Yeah, you will. And they've also, the 5 people you surround yourself, you become like, no? Isn't it? You become like the people you spend the most time with?
You do.
Yeah, and I looked at this friend of mine that I had, and I went, you know what? I do not want any of your traits. I do not want to be anything like this person. And unfortunately, relating it back to cosplay and the cosplay community, like you said at the start of the episode, it is definitely an escapist hobby, which is fine.
Yeah.
All of humanity want to escape constantly. Reality is grim. Of course we want to escape into pop culture and media and fantastical stories, and unfortunately cosplay, I think, does attract quite a lot of people who do not work on themselves as people, or do not put in any effort because they feel like they will be accepted as they are to the community. And while that is true, I don't think it's fair for you to then bring all of your problems onto the community and expect to be treated the same or praised even. I think that everybody should be making an effort to improve their mental health.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Or just improving themselves as people,
Yeah.
even if it's not just a health-related thing. Because very much so, like I said, 5 people that you hang out with, that's the person you become. And if you hang out with 5 people who constantly bring you down, or you say to yourself, oh man, I'm having a bad day, and they say something like, oh, you're having a bad day, man, you should hear about my day. Oh my, they're just trying to one-up you with how bad things are.
Yeah.
Or like, oh man, I stayed up to like 3 a.m. finishing this costume, I'm so tired. And they're like, man, I didn't even sleep last night finishing my costume, I'm running. If they're just trying to one-up you, like...
Yeah. Or alternatively, another kind of person that I've encountered a lot in the cosplay community is somebody who's like, oh, did you hear about this drama? Did you hear about this drama? Did you hear about this on this anonymous board? Somebody like that is looking for, like, feeding their insecurities, trying to figure out, like, how they can fix themselves so that everybody likes them. Nobody who is, like, of sound heart is looking at those places or paying attention to that drama and then bringing it up in conversation. That's not healthy. It's so toxic, and I can't stand people like that anymore because I've had so many people around me who have been like that. And I've watched them fail. I'm sorry. People like that, they're not going to go off and do amazing things. They're not going to be the ones... like, believing themselves at the end of the day. Those are the people who have the biggest insecurities, and they're trying to, like, fill that hole inside of themselves.
I think just on that as well, a lot of people like that, because of those insecurities, it's much easier to try and tear someone down who's going up, rather than try to climb up themselves. Because it's hard. It's hard to work on yourself. It's hard to try to develop healthy habits.
Yeah.
Because it does mean changing a lot of your lifestyle, which you've known for a long time, and admitting, hey, what I've been doing is wrong. Maybe I should try do something different. And it's hard. It's bloody hard. I definitely was someone who had a problem with masculinity, in insecurities. And, I look at someone, for example, you look at someone who's, like, worked on themselves and they've been working out for a long time. They've got a great body. They've been exercising, eating healthy. It's hard to admit, hey, my diet sucks. Hey, I haven't been working out. this guy's been working really hard. Good on you, dude. Like, my God, you look amazing.
It shows discipline. It's
It
it's a
does.
visual form of discipline.
Yeah, and it's
that
so-
they show up for themselves.
Yeah.
No matter what.
And obviously, if you're
Every
feeling
day.
shitty about yourself,
Yeah.
it's so much easier to be like, oh, that guy must be on steroids. Like, screw that guy. What's
Yeah.
he been up to? Like,
Yeah.
oh, it's so much easier to be negative and pessimistic to say,
Yes.
try to tear that person down for their hard work rather
Yeah.
than admit fault and say, right, I want to get better.
Mm-hmm.
The hardest thing in the world, I think, to do is to go up to someone like that and say, my God, I am impressed. I love your work. You deserve all the love in the world. And then say, I don't know where I'm at. Can you help me? I think was it asking for help and saying sorry? The two most difficult things in the world for someone to do.
Really?
Because it does require a lot of
Wow.
humility
Yeah.
to say, I'm wrong.
Interesting.
I'm wrong and I would like
Yes.
some help. Because that does admit to the other person
Oh, yeah.
that they're doing better.
And if you come across someone who can never ask for help and
Oh
can
my God.
never apologize,
Can never apologize, red flag.
don't want that kind
Can
of
never
person in
admit
your
that they're
life.
wrong,
Yeah.
red flag.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not saying you need to, at every turn, say, I'm
no,
sorry, I
no.
was wrong.
Yeah.
You don't need to apologise, but
No.
at the very least, say, hey,
This is about like big conflict, I think,
Yeah,
right? Like, yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had a big analysis of the 5 closest people in my life, whether it just be parents and my best friend I've had for 15, 16 years. I've had to cut them out. Same thing. Just you have a chat to them about what's going on, and I hear behind my back they're just saying, "Oh, Jeremy does this with these people, or he beats his girlfriends, or whatever." It's just all this. I'm like, brother,
my
how did
God.
I don't even know what I did to you.
Yeah.
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 I know, and like I said,
Yep.
I was doing some work as a social coach for a while, and then I just saw something on his story. So like, yeah, coaches, they're just people who don't know what they're talking about. They're just trying to get your money, like screw coaches or whatever. I'm like,
Vague posting.
Oh
it
my
never makes you
God.
look good.
it doesn't.
Nobody wants to know more.
It's crazy.
And these same people who I've cut out of my life, I see still vague posting about things that happened 3 or 4 years ago when we could just have a grown-up adult
Have a
conversation about it. Yeah.
It does require, like, look, I'm sorry I've done this, and, you know, I stuffed up. I get it. Let's have a chat about it.
Yeah.
And I have managed to, thankfully, resolve a couple by having that conversation later in life.
Yeah.
It's one of those things, you know, you say things behind someone's back and your friends are doing it and like, guys, that's a bit mean. At the end of the day, you know, they end up blocking anybody within, you know, 3 inches of that person.
Wow.
And fair enough. You know, you don't need that kind of negativity from somebody. But at one stage I did, you know, it got sucky having to tiptoe around someone at conventions. So one day I quite literally just walked up to them and say, hey, can we have a talk? And
yeah.
I said, look, I'm so sorry. I don't know what's been said about you. And it definitely was hurtful. I don't know if it was me myself who said it or it was one of my friends, but I'm sorry. And from there, the conversation can start about like, oh, shit, you know, what have you been up to? How can we actually hang out and don't feel like we have to tiptoe around each other? Because I hate it. I'm sure you hate it. But yeah, I'm sorry. And I'm wrong. Or, hey, can I please ask you for some help or some advice? Hardest thing in the world to do, but it is so, what's the word? It's a really big step in the right direction of improving yourself as a person. That's my big spiel about just self-improvement.
You goddamn coach. No, it's good because at conventions, I think as well, you bring that up, like conversations. Something that happens a lot is trauma dumping, and this happens a lot where I'll be talking to someone at a convention, then all of a sudden they bring up some horrible thing that is going up in their life out of nowhere, unsolicited, which is completely unfair, and it is overstepping of boundaries.
Yeah.
And so something that I've needed to develop over time is being able to establish very clear boundaries and have to say, like, look, I'm really sorry that you're dealing with this, but I cannot have this conversation.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, it's very common at conventions. Have you experienced it? Like somebody coming up to you and start trauma dumping about something, or?
I will say it's happened a couple of times, but probably the way that you are expressing it sounds like it's pretty common. For me, not so much, but I'll have a conversation on that in a second. But just go on. You said trauma dumping is quite common for you.
Yeah, well, when it's somebody who I'm not close with, I think with friends and people that I've known for quite a few years, of course, I think that's fine. If something's happening, this is a chance to catch up, then we need to talk about it. It's important. Let's step away. Let's have a private conversation.
Yeah.
But this is more like can I get a photo with you, stranger? And then all of a sudden, oh my God, my ex-girlfriend is here and I'm trying to avoid them because they did this horrible thing. I'm like, whoa, what the?
Yeah.
And then that's immediately vibrations are just down. I'm now like, the world is terrible. I don't want to be here. I want to disappear into the floor right now. Or even like some photographers who can be super duper pushy and not understand your boundaries. I know a few people who will just not take no for an answer, and you just have to keep pushing for your own boundaries and be like, look, no, I can't do this right now. I don't want to do that. And it can be really difficult. It's a really hard skill to develop, I think, as a cosplayer, because you want to be seen as agreeable and like easy to work with, and you don't want to have a bad reputation for being a bitch or being a diva. I think especially girls have to worry about that, which is ridiculous. We should feel comfortable in expressing and saying no.
It's one of those stupid things, because I know Keely has said so many times as well, just, you know, whenever a guy is assertive, people will take their answer and accept it's like, oh, that's them being assertive and confident. But whenever a girl does exactly the same thing, it's like, oh, they're a bitch
or a boss.
They're a boss. Like,
bitchy boss.
It's you could say the same thing in the same tone, but it's just one of those things which is, I think, incredibly stupid, and people should respect those boundaries, and not them being a bitch, but just them being someone who has boundaries, and they're respecting that for themselves.
Yes, and everybody should have boundaries. It's
should.
important to know what yours are, what you're willing to talk about, and everything.
I think it's very easy to just say yes to be agreeable and likable, but I think it's one of the most important skills to develop is learning how to say no when you genuinely don't want something to happen. And
very important.
Again, I'm not a lady, and I've probably not been in half the situations you've been in, but God, it sucks. I'm so sorry that kind of crap has to happen so much.
It happens. But yeah, in terms of like burnout as well with cosplay, I think that's quite heavily tied to mental health, right? Would you say so?
I would think so. Burnout, let's say in regards to doing cosplay. Burnout in regards of taking too much on at one time, or getting something done by a certain deadline within a certain time frame to a certain standard.
Well, I think burnout is kind of like an overarching feeling that can last over a few weeks or months of feeling like, I just don't want to do this.
Don't want to do it.
I just don't want to do this, right?
And
like it can be related to anything.
Anything.
Yeah.
And it really is just too much in too small a time frame.
Do you think so?
I think so.
It's more about like not meeting your own expectations of yourself, and always setting the bar too high, and then not being able to not giving yourself the time or the resources, the availability to then be able to meet your own expectations, or society, the community's expectations,
or giving yourself enough love. To say I am good enough, regardless of how this turns out to be.
Yeah.
And I think
regardless of your productivity.
Yeah, regardless of productivity, because in a capitalistic society, the more you do, the more you produce, the better, more valuable you are.
Yeah.
And you know, it doesn't matter.
Which is really unhealthy.
It is extremely unhealthy, and I think developing good boundaries with society, another big thing.
Yes.
Because again, if you say I don't like it, I'm gonna burn out, then just literally just stop. Who cares if you don't get that costume done? Who cares if you know, you don't have a costume to wear the next day?
It's fine. Just go to the con.
One of the biggest I honestly urge people to do this if you are feeling the pressure from feeling like you need a new cosplay or need to be completely fabulous every time you go to the convention. Feel free to go to the convention in just normal clothing. As a cosplay, it's the weirdest feeling because you're so used to having something fun to wear, getting photos taken, maybe
being uncomfortable,
talking to other cosplayers in cosplay.
Yeah.
Because when you do that, you will actually start to see the people around you who you know, if they appreciate you for who you are as a person, or just because you do cosplay
and how you look,
Yeah. And I think in the last few years I've started doing that just because I can't be stuffed sometimes. I wear something one day and the next day I can't even be stuffed, put on makeup or whatever, with little makeup I put on.
Yeah. But that's not related to your mental health at all.
It is not, but when you get treated differently by people just because you're not in costume, I think that's a really big speaking point for how other people see you. Because I think a lot of us, again, do cosplay because we want to fit in, or we want to make friends, or we want to not be seen as the not cool person who doesn't cosplay. And I know for myself, I started cosplay because I wanted to meet other fellow geeks, and being in costume kind of gave me that bit of confidence. If anything, saying, "Hey, yeah, I'm a cosplayer too. We've got something in common." And yeah, I've seen who the real ones are. If I'm in costume or not, we have a good chat. We have some fun. And people who I say tier 1, tier 2 friends who want nothing to do with me because I'm not in costume. They don't say, "Oh, who's this guy?" You're like, you want to talk to me, but as a cosplayer, but you're not a cosplayer. It's crazy. It's crazy, but it helps me assess as well. Like, okay, my self-worth is not tied to if I'm in costume or not, and it shouldn't be. But obviously, people like that, it is, and it sucks. But
It might also be a fault of recognizability and people not really being able to recognize you. Unfortunately, there's a lot of faces to know.
There's a lot of faces,
and it's very hard if they've only had one brief interaction with you in cosplay.
I'm absolutely guilty of forgetting people's names and stuff as well. So,
but okay, like you say, like if you don't feel like cosplaying, you just don't. But I think there's a lot of people who might be able to relate to this where, and I've done this, where you just push through anyway. You go, no, I've spent hours on this. I've put so much on the line.
Yeah.
I'm entering a competition today. I need to put this on and I need to go out and wear it.
Yeah.
What are then the ramifications of you being in a bad mental headspace and then still going out and cosplay?
yeah,
That is going to lead to you either having a panic attack or just not enjoying yourself at all, and probably ruining, not being your best self. You're not going to be able to show up for yourself. You're not going to be able to show up for others. Like, yes, maybe by the time you get there, you'll kind of like forget how you feel and be like caught up in the moment. But if you're feeling bad enough, I would say it won't affect your mood.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Have you ever done that? Have you ever pushed through and just been like, nah,
Numerous times.
Yeah.
And it's taken me years to realise when I finish this costume and push to the finish line, at the end of the day, the one who cares about the costume more than anybody is me. And when I get there, do people care that, the costume has been finished on time? No. Do they care that something is completely missing from the costume? No. In the end, it really is, I think... Well, at the end of it was that I think that people are going to like me less because the costume's not finished, and I ruined my own physical and mental health just being worried about what other people would think about me because my costume is not finished or not done in time or to a certain standard, which sucks. Because you might think it's like, wow, I'm a famous cosplayer with lots of followers and people expect me to be there in a good looking costume, and if I'm not, I'm letting them down and they're not going to think that I'm a qualified cosplayer, like all these kinds of things.
those are real feelings.
They are real feelings that people have.
Yeah.
And again, I definitely had that as well.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, most recognizable cosplayer in Queensland or something stupid. And people have said that to me.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was weird. And it took me years to be like, no one actually cares as much as I think they do. And it's a trap.
But you're letting people down.
Yeah, it's a trap. You're not letting anyone down. You're not letting yourself down. You're not letting other people who expect to be in costume. They're just like, oh, Jeremy, why aren't you in costume today? I quite simply said, I just didn't feel like it. I feel very comfortable and I'm happy and I got a good night's sleep. That's it. If you want to take cool photos another time, you do the cool photos another time. But just because you don't show up one day in a costume to a convention, it doesn't take anything away from you as a person or as a cosplayer, I think, just because you chose not to.
No, and I would say that if this is an overarching theme that you've noticed in your life, that it's kind of affected you over a couple of conventions, I would say to take a step back from the hobby and maybe go and analyze yourself outside of the hobby. And like I said before, if you can get blood work done, so make sure, do a full health check, honestly.
Health checks are good.
Literally, because as well, I forgot to mention this before, but when I got that first blood test done, the doctor that I was seeing at the time was like, your hormone levels are really high, but you're probably just getting your period soon. When I track all my cycles, which I highly recommend everybody do, is literally just use your health app has a period tracker. Very useful thing to be able to look back on as well, because I was able to look back and see that no, that was actually day 7. I've still got 2 weeks left.
That's way too weird, yeah.
So I was like, no, actually this is a really unnormal amount of hormones to be having at the time. What I've also done as well in my health journey is I went to a pathologist. Which is
blood work done?
No. Pathology is like a kind of, I forget like the exact line, but it is a holistic approach to health. So they do things like herbs, they do things like lifestyle approaches, they like more medicinal, like I guess more.
Pathology is someone who takes blood from
Sorry,
you and analyzes it.
naturopath. I'm getting it completely wrong. Pathology is, you're right. You're completely right. I went to a naturopath. We do a holistic approach to health. And they were able to look at the blood. Also because, I went to a student place.
Yeah.
So a lot more affordable. Like the consultation itself, $10.
Awesome.
Anyone could go and do that and
That's
be
cool.
like, you know what, I have these health concerns. You've got to be very open. You've got to say, look, this is exactly what I'm experiencing, and they will be able to help you. Honestly, more affordable than maybe if a therapist isn't an option for you, because that can be very expensive. But here in Australia, we have Headspace. We have a great resource. If you're under 25, you should be able to get a mental health care plan,
yeah.
and it should be free. Shouldn't cost you anything. Even then, I think they have like bulk bill plans available. Like it's very cheap. But yeah, naturopath, $10 a session. Really great.
Worth a try if you don't have any other options.
Yeah, absolutely. And they analyze all sorts of bodily things like your skin, your color, your strength of your nails, your hair,
I should do
your
that.
bowel
That
movements,
sounds fun.
everything. Yeah. And allergy testing, absolutely, stuff like that. It's things because my experience with going to the GP and going to doctors about mental health is that usually in Australia, they've just become so busy.
Yeah.
They do not have the time to really think or analyze your case or see you as a whole person, unless maybe you're lucky and you've had a family doctor your whole life and that they're invested in your health and they know you. But I guarantee you, I've been thrown around the bulk billing system and tried to find. I now know that clinics do not accept new patients for their bulk billing. You have to already be a be a client of that place.
Or a patient of that place.
A patient, yeah. So I feel very lucky that I was able to get into these bulk billing places, but even then I can tell you they literally do not have the time of day to be able to tell you things. Like I literally, from my initial blood test where I was deficient on iron, I then went in for a follow-up, which I was told to do. I was told to come back in 3 months for a follow-up. I came back a year later and went, look, I need a new referral for a blood test. Can I please get everything tested again that I was deficient in? And the reaction that I got was, look, I need a medically good enough reason for you to justify getting this because it's bulk billed. You can pay for this privately if you want. I'm like, the last doctor I saw literally said I needed to get this tested. You know what she did?
Yeah.
She didn't get my iron tested, which is what I was deficient in. The naturopath also then when I called up for the follow-up being like, okay, you told me to call you about my blood test results, what's up? And they're like, oh, you're iron deficient. Okay, cool, great, thanks for that. What about my hormones though? Like what about all this other stuff?
I think
my
who
thyroid.
You see has a huge impact on what's going to happen.
Massive, and your understanding of your own body. So I went to the naturopath and they were able to say, oh my god, no, your period you should not have had that high estrogen levels. That is really unnatural. But we're able to look at this year's next progress. I'm being very transparent about this because I think it's very important. But they were able to look a year later, yep, you're back to normal now. This is looking great. But your iron, they've only tested your iron reserves, which is actually not the amount of iron that is in your bloodstream. So which is ridiculous.
It really depends.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
That's terrible. But it really depends on, I think, who you see. That's going to make a huge difference in the outcome. Huge difference.
So
obviously, it really depends who you see, who your practitioner is, because that's going to have a huge difference on the results of what you learn about yourself and how you can help yourself.
Absolutely. If you have a negative experience with a doctor, don't go back. Try and find another one. There will be more.
I've got one quick experience, really, is my last partner. She's had bad experiences with a lot of authorities, so with both doctors, police, everything. So nothing was really assessed properly until many, many, many years later. I think even after we split up, they actually just decided one day, it's like, crap, I need to see a doctor about a prescription. I don't care who, even if I have to pay for it. Went to one of our local ones. They happened to be like an absolutely fantastic doctor who sat down and she did a proper mental health care plan for the first time ever. And she said, oh my god, I was there for like an hour. She only charged me for just a regular consultation, and I've learned more from this doctor about myself than I have in 25 years. So it
can be super valuable information, and your parents might not know everything, so it's you can only get so far with them, I think, with their knowledge, and as well they probably only know what was available to them and not what is available now.
It's one of those interesting things in which obviously your parents doing the best that they can to educate you with the knowledge that they know, but I think it's one of those very weird traps that we fall into as we grow up, thinking our parents are the fountain of knowledge for everything.
Yes.
And obviously we want that to be the case because
Yeah.
we love them, we trust them as much as we have from birth. But as I've gotten older, I'm sure as everyone has, that only extends to a certain point in which that point becomes it's all their opinion from here, and they're telling us the best as we can. But again, you're probably the same as me. I wish I was told, hey, this question that you've asked me, I'm not that knowledgeable about it. This is my
Yeah.
opinion about it.
Yeah.
Feel free to use that information as you wish, but I'm not the expert, so this is just my opinion. And if you want to go get another opinion, I encourage you to do so.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things.
Maybe
you
there are
have to-
parents who are like that, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, I feel like the majority of parents are just kind of too busy with their own problems.
Their own
as
problems,
well,
which,
and
you
their
know,
own biases.
and which unfortunately they can take it out on their kids, and
Yeah.
they don't know how to handle that. And
Yeah.
but I think that's why a lot of us have a bit of trouble as we grow up, is because we probably weren't taught everything that we would probably needed to be taught.
Not. Absolutely
But-
not. The whole crisis I went through, the literally coming of age, all those coming of age movies that they make, and they never, to me, they were always the awkwardness of puberty. Oh my god, oh no, sex, boyfriends.
Yeah.
But they were never mental health, job, being an adult, moving out. Oh my god, everything is terrible. They're never. The reality check I had of being shit, this is what life is. This is not what I thought it was gonna be. But I don't know. I feel like it's not normal to kind of pretend mental health shouldn't be talked about in cosplay, and when you are forcing yourself to do things and then just complaining on your story, being wow, I'm depressed. You shouldn't just keep going. Nothing's going to change. You can't, I think a lot of people act as if they are waiting to be saved or waiting for somebody else to come and intervene. Nobody is coming for you. Nobody is going to pull you out of that rut. Even if your friends are supportive and valuable to you, and helping you through this, there's only so much they can do. You need to be the one that takes the action, and the most extreme action possible.
The only one who can change anything in your life is yourself.
Yeah.
And I had to figure that out myself the hard way as well.
Me
I'm sure
too.
everyone has
Yeah.
had to. Again, coming from an Asian background, mental health, absolutely not something that's discussed whatsoever.
Yeah.
Again, I don't see that as any fault of my parents. It's just, I think, that the way that they were raised. It's one of those weird things. I think
I have an interesting perspective on that. Sorry to interrupt, but I don't think that it matters who your parents are in terms of mental health, because my dad is literally a mental health nurse, and I cannot talk about it with him either. His literal job, he's worked in what's it called? A ward?
psychology ward.
Yeah. Or a mental health
Mental
ward.
health ward, yeah.
In literal hospitals designed for mental health
Yeah.
patients, and we can't, for schizophrenic patients, and, all sorts of, crazy levels of illnesses, and we can't have a single conversation about mental health. So.
It's wild. And again, I don't just...
And he doesn't understand.
He
He doesn't believe that I would possibly have mental health issues.
It's one of those traps in which I think one of the things we mentioned earlier before, the hardest thing to do is say you're sorry and admit fault. And if a parent is not able to do that to their kid, that's probably a telltale sign that something is probably not 100%. No one's going to be perfect, but there's probably a bigger issue there that is underlying.
Probably.
I know, again, same thing. This took a lot of years of just thinking and doing work on myself. And I had to learn, number one, my parents aren't perfect. And number two, that they're also human, and they did the best job that they could with the resources they had. And, I turned out the way I did, but I'm not going to blame my parents for anything. They did the best they could. I am where I am now. It's time for me to pick up the ball and do what I can with what I've been given.
Absolutely.
I think it's a lot, like you said before, there's a lot of people who just think or wish that
Or
waiting, so maybe
you might be subconsciously waiting.
Yeah.
I think I was subconsciously waiting for things to happen to me and thinking oh, this opportunity will come, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
You'll wake up every day the same if you don't take action.
Same thing with I think with relationships is a big one.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
I'm waiting for Prince Charming to come or my princess to just get whisked away into my life.
Absolutely.
It doesn't work like that.
No.
Matter what you might think,
No.
whatever you want, you literally have to
Go get
work for it. You have to chase for it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you should, throw your back out, bend over backwards to
No.
become someone that someone else will like.
No.
But you should definitely be working to becoming somebody that you yourself are going to be happy with. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who knows yourself the best, and you're the one who spends the most time with yourself. So you deserve to learn to love yourself.
I think it's a quick way to end up living in regret if you're not doing the things that you clearly want to do and like you maybe dream about, and you're maybe like, yeah, I'll do that one day, but then all of a sudden you kind of might realize that you've been living a different life,
or you've been living to the standards of somebody
other
else.
People. Yeah, and even the way that you, I guess, engage with your friends, like maybe you aren't being a good friend to your other people because of your mental health is getting in the way because of your pessimistic outlook on life, and maybe you might not realize it, but you might end up losing friends that way as well. Good people.
It's really tough to recognize that, because your friends, your closest people in your life, want the best for you, but it's so difficult to communicate that to somebody close to you. For example, if you just think about it, if you knew that your best friend had some obvious trouble in their life and they were unloading on you every single time they got it, how hard it is to say to that person, look, I care for you as a friend, but what you're going through, I can't help as much as you want me to, and it's something you need to work on, and I'm here to support you. But the way that you kind of treat me every time we talk, you're treating me like a therapist, you're treating me like someone who is going to save you, and I cannot do that for you.
Yeah.
Having that conversation with someone who does have trouble is probably the most difficult thing I think you can have with someone. I think it's easy to tell a stranger, hey, I can't help you, you need to go.
Yeah.
But telling a close friend, probably instrumentally more difficult.
Yes.
Have you had to... I know you've had the discussion, you had to kind of push negative people away out of your life.
Yeah.
And you said before as well, you said people trauma dumping on you as well. Have you ever had to kind of take a step back from, I guess, someone who was relying on you possibly a bit too much?
I think so. I think I've done it twice. I think back, to the situation that happened with a friend of mine who was in an abusive relationship, and that partner had turned my friend into a completely different person, and I think was maybe even writing messages through her account to me. Oof. Yes. Kind of just turning into a quite twisted person and not the soul that I know she is. And I think I reached a point where I was like, I'm too invested, I need to stop. And in their own time came back around with friends, and the other person, it was several month long process of having sit down interventions and being like, you need to take care of your physical and mental health because we cannot do it and you're not listening. This person unfortunately got so defensive that it just led to another intervention till we just reached a point of no return. And
you
it's like,
can't
you know
help
what?
them anymore,
Hard cut, hard out, close the door.
I mean, all the best you can do at that point is just, you say, look, I can't be in touch with you anymore for my sake and your sake, and I wish you the best, and I hope one day we can talk again, but at this point I can't.
Depends. It depends how that person reacts, because the reaction I got to this person was extremely hostile and aggressive, and not a message I even opened. You know when you can preview messages on Messenger?
I read the first
you
one
don't
or two
need
sentences.
to.
I'm deleting that one.
Exactly. You don't need to subject yourself to that person's opinion of you, because that's not true. I don't believe it's true.
It's one of those things too, in which, later, you'd hope that they do have a chat with you, and I think even when you're in a bad mental state, it's very possible to lash out at somebody and say some things that you probably don't ever wish to.
Well, see, I've actually been in that position. I have been that person who has lashed out at someone, and I've had a friend tell me, you know what, we need time, I don't want to talk, which, led to a lot of my own self-development and questioning, am I the bad guy here? Like, what have I done? wrong here, and being able to have that level of self-awareness, being like, you know what, I don't think I want to be that person. That's not how I set out to be. I've just gotten way too wrapped up in output, productivity, and my vision of success and perfectionism as well, that I've kind of let everything else come as a second, and I've treated my friends in a really terrible way, and not something that I want to continue. And it took years, but we've now turned around and gone, you know what, I'm really still really want to be your friend. I'm sorry for everything that happened.
That was probably very tough to say as well.
No, it was easy.
Yeah,
it was easy to say sorry, because I could see how much I'd been in the wrong. That felt easy. But maybe that's because of that specific person.
Yeah.
Whereas this other, unfortunately, you have falling outs in cosplay. I think it's impossible to not have chaos. Like, it's really, people get heated, people have opinions, people say things behind each other's back, people get
like
tired.
Others, people don't like others, people want someone to be on their side, people want people to side with them.
Yes, there are several people who I am absolutely not on speaking terms with anymore, because we just don't get along, and because I don't agree with their lifestyle choices, because I don't agree with the way that they treat other people as well. Like, there's, unfortunately, girls who I was really close to who absolutely, I would say, did as much damage as probably a relationship breakdown would have done. Yeah, it felt like it. The level of intimacy that you have with a person, that a friendship that can then turn around and just completely scar you, because the people who are closest with you know what your weaknesses are and what your vulnerabilities are, and then they can abuse that. And it's really heartbreaking, and it can be really hard to recover from.
It can be, I think, especially in terms of trust, because you obviously put all your trust into someone you've known for ages, and obviously you had enough self-respect to know when to step away and say, I can't do this anymore, I can't be in touch with you anymore. But it makes every kind of future relationship put you a little bit on edge, because you think, can I trust people again?
Absolutely.
I think it is definitely one of those things too, because I've had very tight friendships. Like I said, 15 years, I've known someone since high school, and I've just had to, I can't talk to you anymore. And it sucks. You're like, who can I trust? But I think the one thing I found that did help for me is knowing that you have developed enough as a person to care about yourself enough, and as you grow older, your judgment obviously grows as well. So you learn to get to know people better.
Yeah.
Obviously, you fake it a lot less as you get older if you learn, and so you can trust yourself enough that if you do meet someone new, you can make a judgment call and make the right call at the right time.
You can begin to recognize self-sabotage and behaviors that you're not responsible for. I can't tell you the amount of people who've blamed me for their own behavior. Holy shit.
Maya, you are the reason that I'm a bad person.
Yeah. People have told that to me.
Far out.
People have said the most nasty things. Like, you can probably imagine people have said it to me.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't. I think you're pretty rad, but
I don't know.
It's like, my God, Maya, you're the reason I'm not popular. It's the reason my follower count is not as much as yours.
I think especially, this can probably be another, sorry, I ignored what you said.
No, go for it.
It could be another topic, but especially when it comes to the idol and dance group world, there can be a darker side, absolutely.
Yeah.
Not the Oshinoko darker side, but the more
underbelly.
No. Like the Chica idol, like underdog level of idol activity, of behavior that just kind of goes unspoken. I've never talked to... that's a lie. I've talked about it once in a very inflammatory live stream that I did about the kind of treatment that I got from being in that community. And I wish I could say that it's improved in the 3 years since I've not brought it up.
Yeah. Is that something you'd be comfortable discussing at some stage?
I think so. The reality of what it's like to be in a group of in my experience, girls, but in a group of people who are trying to collaborate towards something. We've seen this with content creator houses. We've seen how much drama just comes out of it, but it can be really hard to work together with people when there's nothing, like, when you're kind of forcing each other to do this activity as a hobby, and then setting the stakes really high, and feelings get involved.
Of course,
it becomes like a relationship that then feels like a breakup, or things can happen if you betray people's trust, and it's messy, and I feel like people don't talk about it enough.
Well, look, we probably save that for another topic, because that's, I'm sure, a whole another ballpark, really, but we can talk about it if you're comfortable. about idol groups.
I think so.
Because I won't say, like, it is cosplay in a way, but as soon as it starts to become original content, people kind of, it's another culture altogether.
That's quite different. That's
it's quite different, yeah. So, I don't know, once upon a time we were like, oh, Jeremy, you're talking too much about, like, my idol activities. That's not even relevant because we're talking about cosplay. But now that we're talking about cosplay and life, we can have a discussion. Like,
but I'm thinking back to my Love Live cosplay group days,
course.
which is cosplay, and the numerous Love Live cosplay groups that existed at the time and still do.
I think it'd be an interesting...
Because I think there's so many, like, ramifications of people who have been in those groups, and the way that we were treated from an outsider's perspective and alienated from the rest of the cosplay community. Are you kidding me? You're not a cosplayer, you're a Love Live, or
again, it's one of those things
exist
would be really interesting to chat about because I'm not involved in the community, the idol community, I think, in any real way, shape, or form. No. So I've got my perspective from someone who's an outsider, for someone who's quite intimately involved with the community.
Absolutely. Something that was driving me as a factor, I think, out of insecurity probably for many years as a cosplayer and as a
artist.
I don't know, creator, I guess, content creator, is something that used to drive me insane as a young person, as being like 16, 17, is I just wanted to be taken seriously. Because so many people just would dismiss me as a young girl. I'd be like, oh, you're just young, I cannot tell you how much of my artistry and, like, willingness to become a really good sewer and, like, craftsmanship and dive really heavily into it is because I just want to be taken seriously.
I think it's probably two things, and I'm so sorry that it's just in your disadvantage. Number one, your age, but two, just because you're a girl as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And not from, like, a wealthy family or anything, like, no kind of notability or I've got no nepotism, no claim to fame here.
Just
literally starting from nothing. Yep, no. And I've been told, oh, it's obvious you don't make your costumes.
People who are listening to this, you know who you are when you make comments like that towards people.
It's unnecessary.
It is.
Yeah, the amount of hate comments that I'm
subdued. So sorry,
and I'm
to
sure
get rid of that
I'm
stuff.
sure there are many people who have gone through the same.
Something similar, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's really interesting. Oh no, go on, please.
We can probably do a topic about commissions as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have.
We've kind of gone into
whether
make
or not
or buy,
you should.
but that was like our third or second episode ages ago. So
I'd say talking about commissions would be interesting because I think a lot of people are now turning to look and see, can I do this as a career? Commissions are a valid way to, literally get work for your, like, money for your work. Yeah. And not have to be the cosplayer presenting. It's literally just like you can go and 3D print stuff and behind the scenes, like, turn into a very valid business. But the kind of things that you then engage with in the community, like, I've been told to my face, yeah, I'm really happy with this outfit. Thank you so much for making this to me. And then the same person turn around and bitch about me on the internet and go, yeah, actually, what they made was shit and it was terrible and it fell apart. And I'm like, why wouldn't you just be honest with me?
I'm getting mixed messages here. Why don't we just talk about this? If you don't like it, you want a refund, well, tell me about it to my face instead of having to go around behind my back.
But I have to say that, like, mentally, it's been such a massive hurdle for me to overcome those hate comments and to believe, like, you know what? Yep, I make mistakes. Sure, I'm only human, but I'm constantly trying to improve myself and keep going and learning as I go.
Absolutely.
But that's so difficult to stick to, and it's so much easier to just give up and fall into despair and be like, you know what? I'm fucking done. I'm going to quit.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
Absolutely. I think, like I said before,
when you feel like the world is against you.
When the world's against you. And I think
and
that's...
your close friends.
When those 5 people around you... I say top 5. It's just an average, right? But whoever is around you is really going to shape your mentality and what you think of yourself as a person as well.
Yeah.
Same thing. I try to shut down as fast as I can. Housemates, sometimes I'm doing my best to be like, dude, you look great today. You look swole. Bro, I love your workout routine. Like, I love your outfit. Just positive affirmations are great.
Yeah.
And I know it can be in boy talk or whatever it is, but it's like, bro, you suck. You do this. And at the end of the day, I'm like, dude, like, who hurt you? What have I said to you? Like, what's with all this hate? You call them out pretty quick. It gets shut down pretty quick as well. But I don't know if it's just boys, interesting. I'm glad nowadays it's starting to get better, in which I see a dude and I'm like, dude, you look great. Like, you look muscly. You've been working out. I appreciate you. and it's been a world of difference just being someone who is it feels more comfortable giving people a compliment than trying to tear someone down because I feel insecure.
Yeah.
Actually, before I was mentioning, we were talking about trauma dumping and stuff, right? I think the reason why you probably have had it a lot versus, and I say I've had it maybe once or twice, but the only people who are really close to me, is number one, I don't think, in general, again, another point of discussion completely is just men and mental health. And not taking anything away from anybody else, just I don't hear a lot of dudes kind of talk about it because it's not masculine or it's shows weakness if you do talk about it.
Yeah.
And I think admitting fault, particularly from a guy, oh my god.
Yeah.
You might say, it's like, oh, I'm happy. No, I don't really see a lot of dudes say, dude, I'm so sorry. I was wrong. That is my mistake and I apologize. I have very rarely heard that from any, just dude in particular. And same thing, I hang out with dude friends and we talk about video games and sports or whatever. But when it comes to how are you feeling today? Like, what's up? Like, are you feeling crap? Like, you want to talk about it? 9 times out of 10, it's a no. It's so rare.
Yeah.
So in the same way, I don't have dude friends who want to, I guess, talk about feelings or deep dark mysteries with me. With girl friends or girls or just girlfriends in general, it's a lot more common because I think
we've been socially trained
to be able to,
like, if you look at the way that it's like, oh, girls have their social catch-ups and they talk about everything, whereas guys are like, oh yeah, let's go out and work, let's play golf. Like, yeah that like it's been socially kind of like trained that there's like this gender divide of like the classic women who catch up for wine and a chat and go out and
guys talk about sport and go drink beers.
Well, even then, like, go drink at the pub. Go drink at the pub.
And I know we talk about, incels or socially awkward people or whatnot. I think, especially for guys, it's tough for them to catch. I think by nature, girls will learn very quickly because they need to defend themselves. They need to be very witty and socially smart about when someone is in public being stupid, how to appear assertive and nice, because they have to appear nice. They can't be bitchy or whatever, right? And I think you learn very quickly. And for guys, there's no repercussions if they're stupid. And because of that, it's like, oh, I'm not going to admit that I was the one in the wrong. They were just rude to me. And as a result, I think that's why I try to do my work as a social coach, really, is because, that's the fridge, don't worry. Okay. With my work as a social coach, I predominantly worked with dudes, and I'm happy to, because they were the ones who were willing to say, I don't know what I'm doing. I need some help. Can you help me? And it's like, yes, I can, because you're willing to say, I need a hand.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of guys who's like, oh, I don't need any help with that, because that's admitting faults. That it's admitting, oh, I am socially awkward.
It's the same with mental health.
Same thing with mental health, absolutely.
Yeah, both gender, like any gender, regardless of gender.
Regardless of gender, it's just admitting weakness is a tough thing to do, but I don't think, admitting that you need help with something should be seen as a weakness. I think in this case it's a strength because it's like you've got the courage to be able to say that. But cosplay and mental health, there's a lot of it going around.
Heavy episode.
Flew
by.
That was an hour.
By.
My god.
Yeah.
How are you feeling?
Good.
It's a bit
vulnerable. Hopefully, this might have inspired you to go and check and suss out your health.
Well, thank you for feeling comfortable with talking to me about something that is probably a bit of a difficult topic to talk about, I think, for a lot of people.
I feel it's part of me is like, I don't know if you care kind of thing, but part of me is also like, no, this is really important because like years of therapy didn't help as much as the physical changes.
Do I look like my eyes are glassing over like I don't care?
I know. Well, you're on front of a camera right now. You have to look like you care, but no, I know you do. I know you care.
I thought we were friends.
We are. We are. I don't know if it's TMI, but
no,
I don't think it is. I believe it's not. I believe it should be common practice to check in on your friends and their own physical health and be like, because God, what if you check up and you have cancer or something?
Absolutely.
Oh my God, you want to know?
I mean, they don't. They're not obliged to tell you, but obviously you're concerned because they've been acting a bit different. Then absolutely. Well, thank you for being vulnerable with me because obviously you've probably told some stories you probably haven't discussed
ever
before, especially
Mm-hmm.
on a public platform. It's not just behind closed doors between two close friends.
Mm.
So, yeah, look, it's not to say that you need to start a podcast and share your
No,
stories. It doesn't
that
need to be
isn't what
anything.
healed me. It's not what helped. I wanted to show up to this podcast of sound and being true to myself. It's not like I've done this as like a self-improvement
Yeah.
journey. Like, yeah, sure, I've learned things, but no, all the hard work happened away from everyone else on my own.
I'm
Absolutely.
proud of you.
Not even like, yeah, not even in the doctor's room, not even in the therapy. It's like when you are alone, it's your choices that you make then that count and that will make the change.
When you're alone with your thoughts
Yeah.
about yourself.
Yeah.
And
Well, yeah, because
yeah.
you can go to a therapist and like get heaps of help, but you're the one who then needs to go and do the work.
Absolutely.
Like they can tell you what to do, but if you don't do it, then
It's up to
you're
you.
not going to improve. Like yeah. But no, it's funny. I know this is kind of going on a bit of a tangent, but I did want to say that, like you just said, like expressing yourself through mental health through podcasting
Yeah.
made me think of my film professor who is teaching a directing mentorship had literally said on a slide, he was like, you know what, film is not therapy. And I completely disagree with what he said.
I do too.
think I might have brought this up before, to be honest.
But that's fine.
But I have such an issue with it because I think that there is such a valuable self-expression through art, and that
think so.
you can absolutely work out your feelings and your trauma by expressing them. You don't even necessarily have to share that art with the world, but I think that drawing, especially an artistic, like being able to
Any artistic
visualize.
interpretation, or art, music, drama,
Yeah,
plays, just any way that you can
express.
express yourself, poetry.
Yeah.
Because I think it does help to express yourself in a way which you probably couldn't do normally
Absolutely.
just through discussion.
Yeah. And I think that it's really an important thing to do because I think if you don't, you end up internalizing those feelings
yeah.
and they will rot and they will ruminate.
They'll eat you
They will
out from the
turn
inside.
into, self belief issues and your identity and everything. So I think that expressing it through film, through art, through whatever,
Music.
voiceover, singing, music, I think is really important. And it's actually a great outlet.
It's
Like,
terrific.
what else are you gonna do with that anger and that rage? Are you gonna go punch someone? Are you gonna go violence? Like, no. Art. Make art.
Make things.
Some of the best art I think ever created is probably from a dark
people
space.
expressing
dark.
their feelings through
Yeah.
the way that they know best, which
Right.
is through art,
The
performance,
most powerful
music. It's
feelings
the most powerful
will
feeling.
create the most powerful art, I think.
Keely said something to me before, which I probably agree with to no end, is the most important or the best invention created by mankind is music, in that it's something in which you can express yourself in a way that you don't even need words to show someone how you feel or to express an emotion which you can't explain in words.
Yes.
And
The same could be true about fashion, though.
well, look, each to their
Or
own.
art.
Each to their own.
But
Just
yeah.
music's
Powerful.
and to
Powerful.
me, it's been something I didn't realize how lucky I am to have grown up.
Yes.
Being educated in music, or being able to do the things that I do, or to have bloody two hands
I know.
to do things.
I know. And they might get taken away from you, so be grateful. while you
Yeah,
can.
I'm grateful that the fact I was born with 10 fingers and of, fair motor skills that I can do something with it, because I know not everyone can. I've got a voice that I can speak into a microphone with and sing once in a while. But
And have this podcast.
and have this podcast.
All right, I feel like we should wrap things up because
Wow,
it's
this is
becoming quite a
we're
long
we're starting
episode.
new records for our pod. Again, I don't think people, because we've had comments before. You should make your podcast longer. I've had that a couple of times too.
Movie length episodes.
Movie-length
Holy
episodes.
moly.
Oh my god,
We're
it just
going to need
depends.
a new camera if we do that.
Oh, okay. We are
New battery.
actually thinking about investing in one. I've said this probably before. Because this battery, I don't know if you noticed, but we do cuts every like 20 minutes because the camera battery only lasts.
Purely because of our tech.
Our tech.
Yeah.
We're limited.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about a second microphone? Do you feel okay with this?
I like this.
I don't
think
mind
it's okay.
either.
I don't mind.
If we had two cameras, separate sides of the room,
yeah,
if you
it
wanted
means
to.
you have to edit it.
But it shows like we've got like visual, engaging with each other. Microphone works fine. No, I think we're doing pretty okay
Pretty
with our
open.
setup. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm proud of what we've done.
Me too.
I'm proud of you. I'm proud
Why?
of you. You've put in the work and you've transformed and you're still transforming.
Well, you've seen that transformation. There have been times where I'm literally sat at this kitchen table crying about my life to you, and you've been there through it and for me and helped me.
That's what friends
be
do.
a shining light of positivity, no matter what.
As someone,
no matter how stressful things get.
I'm glad I can be that
Yeah.
kind of person in your life. And I hope that you can be that kind of person in your life, for yourself and for people around you. Biggest compliment I think we've gotten so far is you were 2 balls of dazzling sunshine when we met you. That was nice.
Yeah, which is the identity that I want to have when I go out into the world. That is aligning with my values in life.
I'm glad.
There's enough doom and gloom out there.
It is. It is
yeah.
definitely be the person that you would love to meet.
Yes.
I think more than anything else.
Yes.
But look, that's enough heavy-handedness for today. We've gone through. Well, this is probably our longest one yet. I think, just by the time that I've got on the table. Any closing words you want to bring ahead?
Oh gosh.
It's our 3rd podcast today, so we left the heaviest topic for last.
I'm
My
glad we
God.
did though, because it feels a lot more mellow, and I feel like I can align my thoughts to kind of make say what I want to say
in a comprehensive way that
Oh
makes
my gosh.
sense rather than
sort of.
yeah.
I don't know. I think I want to reinforce maybe what we just mentioned about me being vulnerable with you, even though I think our friendship is quite a newer one. I would say that don't be afraid to make new friends and be vulnerable and open with them, because I think you never know when you might meet someone who'll be able to help you through whatever you're going
Absolutely.
through. Maybe your old friends, you outgrow people. It's a normal
happens,
part
yeah.
of, if you don't ever grow and you don't ever change friends, I don't think that's a healthy way to be, like in a small town
You
kind
will
of thing.
find friends who will be great for you at that point in your life, and then you'll part, and there's
I
nothing
think it's
wrong
natural
with that.
to
That's
outgrow
growing.
them. It just shows that you're growing up as a person
Absolutely.
and that you might have different needs for your friendships. And I think, don't be afraid to make new friends and be vulnerable with them. Don't close off.
We will do a full episode on this later, because I've had a couple of requests saying, how do I actually make friends through the community? We'll do a full episode on this later, but I'll just put a point here, which is I've gone through tier 1, 2, 3, 4 friends. I've mentioned this many times, but the way to develop a friendship essentially is, apart from just enjoying each other's company, and you want to actually become close with someone, is you do need to talk about deeper things. And it doesn't have to be, don't trauma dump straight away when you meet someone, obviously. But once you get someone's vibe and you start to get to know, it's like, hey, we have great conversations. That's cool. At some stage, you might choose to open up about, your past relationships or your feelings about something. And when you start to share those feelings, that's when a friendship can develop. But it is a two-way street. If you share, I always try to, when I meet someone, I'll share my feelings about something. Sometimes they share theirs, and great, that's when friendship starts. But if they don't want to share their feelings, that's fine, that's up to them. But the ball is basically in their court, saying, hey, I'm comfortable sharing myself with you. If you ever feel comfortable doing the same, I'm happy to listen. But how to make friends 101, we'll talk about that later.
We will. We shall.
Good stuff.
How many cups of tea have we had today,
Oh my God,
Jeremy?
I need to pee. We've had 2 pots of tea.
4?
I'm probably on to number 5 or 6.
Oh my God.
I've had to pee twice now, but well,
It's ice cold.
that is ice cold.
Yep.
That's enough for that.
Wow, this is really just a plain white mug.
Plain
I
white
don't know
mug.
how I feel about that.
Probably from IKEA.
Looks fake.
IKEA? Kmart? Who
Looks
knows?
like it's missing its
This one's from Arnott's.
render.
Anyway. Good note to end on, you reckon?
I think so. I think we can revisit this topic another time as well.
I think
Bring it up.
we'll bring it
as-
up at another stage, yeah. I think it's a good thing to check in on how people are doing.
It is very
But
important.
it's thank you for listening if you made it this far. This is the longest, the heaviest,
Here's your medal.
Here's your medal for making it to the
Medal.
end of this one.
A little badge, Dad.
Yeah, let us know in the comments. You don't have to tell us everything, but if you enjoyed something like this, let us know about it. If you would prefer us to be more... No, look, we're going to do what we want at the end of the day. We'll always bring our brand of sunshine to you, but we'll always want to try and be real and authentic with you at the same time. And talk about things which I think are probably pretty important for cosplay in the community. So
Yes.
cool, good stuff. All right, let's end this episode here. Thank you so much for listening.
you.
We will talk to you again in the next episode whenever we record that. It's probably going to get pretty close to WCS launch day flying. We'll give you updates on that eventually later too.
Sounds good. All right, we'll see you later.
See you later, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.